how many times have you asked yourself, I just don't understand why they do that? Or why would somebody ever think that way? Or why fill in the blank? And you find yourself constantly thinking, why would somebody do what they're doing? The reality is you don't need their why, and it's getting comfortable with that. Welcome to episode 44 of the Positivity Experience. You don't need other people's why. Check it out. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 44 of the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori. It is the day after we changed our clocks. So if you still haven't changed your clocks, you want to go ahead and do that so you're not always super early everywhere over the next several weeks. Oh my, I have been working on such a project. I am recording it for YouTube as well, but not so much like you're thinking. What I did was I redid my closet. I'm actually sitting in it as we speak because it's been a very long project. I had to micro goal it, right? And it's finally at the point where I think I can start cleaning it up a bit and start putting clothes back in, which is going to be really good because we have stuff all over the house. I've worn the same jeans for like 5 days because I can't find anything. So yeah, I have a few more things to do. It'll probably be ready by like Wednesday, I would say, because I still have to work and have clients and stuff. So, but yeah, so that's been my project. I hope that you guys' week is going well. And you might be asking, why would you redo your closet? Well, the reality is you just don't need to know. And that's what we're going to talk about this week is understanding that you don't need other people's why. And I'm going to tell you, that is going to lead to a lot of disappointment the more you keep trying to figure out why people do what they do, right? So let me break this down some for you, right? Because how many times, like I said, I think we've all been there. And if you've been in the world at all, unless you're listening from Mars, in that case, welcome. But it is kind of one of those things that everybody has just really been very intense, whether it be vaccines, whether it be voting, whether it be wearing something, whether it doesn't really matter what it is. But here's the reality is you don't need somebody else's reasoning. But it's your acceptance of that is good. Now, logically, you know this. Logically, you can say all day long, I don't need to know what they're doing. I don't need to know why they do it. But then at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going, why the hell would somebody do this? And that's the thing that you got to get yourself comfortable with is understanding that you don't need their why. And this kind of goes into that no is a complete sentence as well. And while that is a boundary, being okay with not understanding people's why is really a boundary, not just for them, but for you, right? Because the more you try to figure out something to make you comfortable, there's a good chance you're going to keep asking why, and then you can't let go of a grudge. But in that sort of example that I used when I was talking about no being a complete sentence, if you wanted somebody's why to their no to make you more comfortable, it's the same thing with understanding why somebody, I don't know, was out at 3 o'clock in the morning with somebody else's husband. Why do you need to know that? Like, why? I mean, and now if it's your husband, right, you can go, okay, well, this is problematic, right? This is clearly not something that I want to stay in. Fair. But it's the things that you're not even really technically affected by that a lot of times you judge. And you go, well, a lot of times I am affected by why somebody doesn't communicate. Okay. You really still don't need to know why they're not communicating. You work together as a team, right? You say, okay, when you get in a relationship, you want to be able to have a certain level of communication where you understand the person, they understand you. They don't have to kiss your ass. You don't have to kiss their ass, but that's kind of the overall thing. Here's where that shifts. Is where you need to understand why they're not doing this, why they don't feel this way, why they don't do that. Or, right, this is somebody if you're affected immediately, but if you're not, if it's something you've seen on the internet and you're like, oh man, why would I heard from 15 people that Tiffany slept around on her husband? I don't understand. You don't have to. That's you needing to know somebody else's why when you're not even in there. Why do you care? Why are you so busy putting your energy into other people's lives? Why? Right? That's the why. Not for me. I don't need to know your why, but you do. See, you get so busy looking at everybody else's why that you're not checking your own why. And you get caught up in, why would somebody do this? Why would somebody say that? Why would somebody act this way? Well, what about you? What about why are you not following your goals? Why are you not following your dreams? Why are you so worried about somebody else's life? And here's the reality. They do not owe you their reasoning. Now, going back to that example that I used about communication, if you're saying, why can't this person communicate? Okay, fair. You're in a relationship. You want to kind of understand it a little bit more. But here's where it becomes problematic. It's when you're trying to force that narrative. I'm trying to force you to communicate. You have to communicate. They don't have to. Like, they literally don't have to. And then you go, well, I don't understand why. Like, what is the problem? Okay, if you come at somebody sideways, they're not going to listen to you and they will shut you down. Facts. Right? If I come at you sideways and talk about, I don't understand why you're doing this, you're going to be a little defensive. I mean, you just are. I mean, I think that's very human nature, right? Now, here's the thing with that. This is where you say, in a case like this, since we're using this relationship example, if you're having a hard time with somebody who's communicating, instead of going at them sort of hardcore, and instead of sort of pleading and begging and being like, I just want you to talk to me, right? Instead of that, I want you to say, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm a little disconnected. Like, I really feel like I'm disconnected from you. And I want to catch up with you. I mean, that's what I do with Paul, right? And then it's up to them. Now, here's the thing. You're going to say, well, what if I do that? And then they say, no, they don't want to talk. Then you have choices to make. You have choices to make. If you're going to constantly figure out why your ex-husband's wife is driving you so crazy and making it so problematic, yes, it affects you because it affects your marriage because your spouse now is like all anxious and uptight. I hear you, but what can you do about that narrative? You can still ask yourself why 80 different ways. It's still not going to change the narrative. And there may never be a reason, even if it's somebody close to you or not close to you or society, that even if you have the why, here's an example of that. Let's say somebody's going to give you every why you ask for. Well, I don't understand why you would do fill in the blank. And they say, well, because this makes me happy. This is what I want to do. Okay, I'll use this example. Somebody says, I'm going to go be a stripper. Okay, they're like 30. They're like, I'm going to go be a stripper. And you think to yourself, well, I would probably not be a stripper. Not hating on it, just would not be my jam. I wonder why. It's okay to say, oh, really? Why? Oh, because I'd like to, because I want to. Okay, that's enough for you. That's enough. That's enough, right? But the problem becomes you going, oh, well, you want to, like, don't you want to aspire for other things? Now you start changing other people's why, or you try to. So you want the why, and then you get the why, and then it's not the right reason. Well, that's where you got to check yourself. This isn't for other people to make you comfortable with their why. Okay. Now, when it comes to relationships and people who are close to you, you have to realize you're not going to change their narrative. It is not happening. And if somebody changes for you, that will eventually become problematic. Okay. It just will. Just will. Because a person has to do it for themselves. So it's you getting comfortable with checking yourself. Because so much of your stress, day-to-day stress, is, I don't understand why they haven't called me. I don't know why this isn't happening. I don't know why that isn't happening. I don't know why I can't get myself together. I don't know why. Everything is I don't know why. Fair if you're checking yourself. What is my why? Where am I struggling? Why can I not do blah, blah, blah? Fair, because now we're assessing you. You are the person in control of it. And then people go, well, you know, if they tell me their why, then I can understand them better. Not necessarily, because you still may go, oh my God, why? Like, why would you want to be a stripper, right? You may not like it. And then you may go, oh. So you got to be careful in that, because you say you want to understand somebody, but then if it doesn't make sense to you, there's a good chance you're going to be like, well, that's dumb. Or I don't know why you'd want to do that. You don't have to. And so this is where it's time for you to really start doing more self-reflection work. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask yourself, why do you need to know somebody else's why in the first place? But get honest with it. Oh, because I want to understand them. Why though? Well, because then I could communicate better. Okay. So if you're communicating better and the other person still isn't communicating better, and they say to you, hey, I have phone phobia. I can't pick up the phone and call you because I really struggle with phone phobia, which, by the way, is a true thing. It's where people will not talk to you on the phone. They avoid it. They hear the phone ring. They literally will go, oh my God, like they just don't want to answer the phone. And I'm not talking about work. I'm talking about in general. They'll text from time to time, but you're not going to talk on the phone. So if you say, oh, well, like, why? That's fair. That's a curious question. Oh, okay. Well, you're not why, but oh, tell me about it. Like, what does that feel like for you? Fair. That's good. That's showing interest. It becomes problematic when they say, oh, because, I'm just not, like, I can't call you because it is something, you've known me for years. This is how it is. And you go, well, now you could just like totally just send me a text message. Why? Because it makes you comfortable. I understand that you have your needs and they have their needs and there's a compromise. Fair. But only if both of you agree on it and you're not being a manipulator by trying to figure it out. Now, listen, I'm not calling you out and saying you're a manipulator on purpose, because we all have manipulative tendencies. Even if we're not executing them now, we did when we were kids. All kids are basically manipulative. They'll go to dad. Okay, no, great. I'm going to go to mom. I'm going to play one against the other. That's manipulation. Okay, sure, some people calculate it, but some people don't. Some people are like, well, I just want to get my way. So you have to understand, people as humans are going to carry a level of manipulation with them. That's why you always have to check it. Every day before I start my day, I'm always like, remember, stay in the present space. You cannot change other people's actions. Like, you have to remind yourself of these facts, because going into the holidays, which I did a TikTok on this, is knowing you don't have to go to your people's house. You don't have to go to your family's house. That's not a thing. Oh, but mom's going to be upset. Mom can be upset. And you can compromise. You can say, I'll come in Wednesday. Let's do it on Wednesday. Just me and you. I know the big family's coming over on Thursday. It's a lot for me right now. I would rather spend quality time with you and dad, or you and grandpa, or whomever. Okay. And here's the deal. People inadvertently will try to manipulate without knowing it. Well, you know that the whole family's going to be together. We don't all get together. Fair. That's not coming from a place of manipulation. That's to make them happy. And yeah, there's always a level of compromise that you will do as a human being. But you want to make sure that you're not sacrificing and just showing up so grandma will be happy. And you know that as you're there, Uncle Billy, who you can't stand, and he can't stand you because of some childhood stuff, it's going to be problematic. So is that really helping grandma out? Just because you're there in body doesn't mean that you're there in energy. And the energy that's there, that's not good for grandma anyway. So, and that's up to you. And this is understanding their why. And that's also why a lot of times you'll start your over-explaining. Not just for saying no, you'll over-explain something. It's kind of like me saying to you, and of course I'm doing it as a YouTube, so I will get more descriptive on why I'm doing my closet, right? And I like to watch YouTubes on why people do things, right? Like, why do you repair the sink or whatever, But it's not like pressing. I'm not going to stress about it, but I'll go into why I wanted to change up my closet and why I wanted to put the effort into that, just because it works for me. Why I felt it was okay to just leave every bit of clothing in every room that, yes, it's hard to walk around. And other people might be like, I don't know why you would do it when you don't have like a solid 48-hour plan, because I'm not going to. It's not for you to understand it. So it's you getting clear that other people also don't need to know your why. Yes, communication, absolutely. But why do you vote the way you do? Why do you choose the way you choose? You don't have to explain that to people to try to make them comfortable with it. And so that's the reality, is you have to get to your why. So let's talk about that. Why do you want to be successful? Seriously, ask yourself that question. Why do you want to be successful? If your immediate answer was so I would have money and pay off things, that's problematic. That's not, finances is great. Finances are wonderful. Believe me, they are fabulous. Don't forget, I take clients all over the world. My link's always in my bio on here. Right? So it's like, yeah, I work for money and I pay my bills, and absolutely, it's important. But I don't deem financial success with full-on mental success for me. Okay? So first you have to ask yourself, what is your why? If you say you want to be a doctor, why? Because I like helping people. Why? Well, because I always have. Okay, why though? See, the thing is, if you're not getting to the why beneath the why beneath the why, that first thing that you think is the reason is really just the symptom. So if you get mad because somebody doesn't send you a Christmas card, it's not them. It's not about them or the Christmas card. Like if I say, oh, well, why? Well, they used to send me one every year. I send them one. Well, first of all, nobody has to do things back to you just because you do them. So make very clear on that, number one. And number two, so like, I don't owe you a Christmas card just because I used to do it for years. And then you start with well, why would they not send it to me this year? Like, are they mad at me? Okay, now you're playing narratives. If you want to know, why don't you call them? This is you not wanting to confront somebody. So then playing guessing games in your head, which creates a whole scenario that may or may not be true. And now you're pissed off. So if you want to know where someone is coming from, stop guessing. Stop formulating ideas. Stop listening to other people's why for that person. Ask the source. See, the thing is that you can prevent a lot of this, right? Is you ask the source if you're super stressed about it and be okay with them saying, I don't owe you that explanation. Like, let's say they're angry with you about something. They might say, I'm really angry with you and I don't want to have the conversation right now. Okay. You better say okay. Don't be like, well, wait, what? Like, why can't we talk right now? Because they just told you that they're not going to talk to you right now. So it's you staying in your lane too. And to stay in your lane is, again, you don't have to vibe with everybody in your world. It's just not going to happen, right? We're all different energies in the world. People aren't all going to vibe with you. They're not all going to vibe with me. And that's okay. What the hell are you going to walk around the town trying to get everybody to vibe with you for? That's a waste of energy. And so then you ask yourself this, why do you feel like you need everybody to like you? Why? Well, because I don't like to be not liked. Okay, but why? Well, because I don't like how it feels. Okay, well, why? Well, because it feels awful. Okay, so where do you think that comes from? And then that forces you to dig deeper. So it also forces you to analyze what your wants and desires are. Because for so long, you get caught up in the fancy cars, the fancy house, the $500 million in the bank. Yay, great. I'm here for it all. I'm here for all of that. However, if you are banking your worth on that, that's problematic. Okay, so now you go back to why you need somebody's why. Why won't they communicate with me? Very fair question if you're sitting in therapy. But if you're just walking around and you're only talking to your girlfriends about it, then why aren't you talking to them directly? Because you're afraid that you have the answer that you might get, right? You might get no answer, or you might get an answer that's a little shady and you don't like it. Fair, but then you don't get to choose. You do get to choose, but you don't get to make them choose. Okay, so here's the deal. If you say, I need you to communicate more. Okay, well, that's a little aggressive. So let's say you're like, hey, I really want to talk to you because I'm really struggling here and I feel like we just are not on the same page and maybe I'm off base here, but this is how I feel. So to me, it's valid and I really need to talk to you about it. Now, if the other person on that end says, no, I don't want to talk to you about it, you're okay to go, why, right? And let's say they're like, because I have no desire to work on it. Let's pretend they say that. I have no desire to work on the relationship. Okay. They may not give you any more than that. So if you're staying up to 4 o'clock in the morning, why? Why? Are they talking to somebody else? Are they doing this? It doesn't really matter. If someone's done, they're done. Stop trying to manipulate the situation to make you more comfortable with it. That's not love. That's control. So understanding somebody, needing to understand somebody else's why is control. And see, you'll be like, but wait, then I can communicate with them better. Only if you get the answer you want to hear. Because if somebody says to you right now, if you say, come over to the barbecue, and I say, no, I'm not going to be able to make it. And first of all, that's all I'm going to ever tell you. But let's say for some odd reason, I decided I was going to give you a reason. And the reason was I don't want to. Okay. And you're like, oh, why? And I go, well, because I really don't want to. That's the truth, and I'm not going to be like, listen, it doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm just really, really tired and I just want to lay on the couch. And, I just don't feel like going anywhere. Okay. Now, why did we go through all of that? Why? Now you've opened it up to 800 things. Oh, like I know you're so tired. So you know what? Why don't I come to you instead? Meanwhile, you might not want to people. Now you have to go down that. Oh, I appreciate it, but I really don't want to people. Okay. So you could dead all of that from the door if you're like, no, I'm just not going to make it. You know what I mean? And if somebody pushes and you say, I don't want to, that's it. If they keep asking you why, remember, it's for them to not just be comfortable, but for them to feel comfortable that it isn't shading them, that they approve your reasoning. Just like that's the whole reason behind boundaries. But before we worry about everybody else adhering to your boundaries, number one, you got to check yourself. And you say, what are my boundaries? Yeah, that's not a simple answer. I don't expect you to answer that off the top of your head. But with boundaries, you will lose people that are in your life, and you got to be okay with it. And you have to also be okay with understanding that you don't need somebody else's why. If it's really troubling for you, then you have to remember there's only 3 things you can do in a negative situation. Remove yourself from the situation, right? I understand you can't do that all the time, but I'm just giving you, there's 3 things that you can do, and they're going to fall under one of these 3 things. The third one is my most favorite. But the first one is remove yourself. If it becomes problematic, you see remove yourself from the situation. This does not mean avoid it. This does not mean try to pretend like it didn't happen. No, remove yourself from the situation so you can process the emotion. Period. Maybe it's a night, maybe it's a week. Doesn't matter. No one needs to know your why. Okay? The second thing you can do is change it. Not change the other person, change it. Like I was saying last week, if you can change something, change it. If you can't, you can't. That leads me to the third one, which is acceptance. You got to accept. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but you're the one that's going to lose sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, not the other person. You obsessing over why somebody broke up with you. Let's say they ghost you and they never tell you. Okay. And let's say you're like, well, I try to reach out to them, but they blocked me on everything. They completely ghosted me. Like I have no clue. I'm left to my own brain as to why. Sure. Is that a shitty thing to do? Okay. Yeah. But you're not going to change the narrative by thinking of it at 3 o'clock in the morning. The reality is if you've been ghosted, you immediately internalize that like it's you. Why would you do that? Why would you think all of a sudden I was ghosted? This is automatically my fault. Why? Why? Now ask yourself that. Well, because then I don't know. Is it something I did? Okay. Well, why do you really need to know that? Well, because if it's something I did, like I want to know. Okay. Why? Well, because then I need to know. That's still not, nope, you're just running in circles now. Get to the reasoning as to why you feel as though you can't let it go. Why you can't let it go. I'm not talking about them. So you also don't get to say, hey, Bill, I don't know why you can't let go when I stole the sugar from your house. I don't know why you can't let that go. You don't need to. You don't get to judge somebody else letting go of stuff when you're holding on to shit like a life raft. Don't do that. That's hypocritical. Okay. So reminding yourself that while it's nice to know and it's good to know what kind of communication you can have and people understanding, like, I'll give you a reason. I'll give you an example. We all know I say no with no follow-up, right? We've been here enough to know this. So if someone were to ask me why, I literally would look and be like, because I owe you no explanation, right? But that's me. And this is where I've been for years. And people might be like, oh my God, that's so harsh and cold. Well, you didn't respect my no. I was good in the beginning. If you keep pushing me, if you keep pushing somebody in a corner, they're going to come out swinging. You don't get to create a storm and then get pissed off when it rains. So remember, a lot of the reasons why you feel the need to know somebody else's why is to make you more comfortable in knowing that it's not your responsibility. It's not your quote unquote fault. Right? Remember, humans cannot make other humans feel anything without your consent. So get very clear in being okay with not understanding other people's side of the story and then being okay with not understanding yours. And by the way, it's going to take you some time and some work, right? Because it's not going to be an overnight thing. You're not just going to be like, okay, I'll go to bed tonight and I don't really give a shit why they did those things. I mean, I do that. But you know how long I've been working on it? Years. If somebody is mad at me, I'm okay. Is there anything I can do about it? No, they felt I said blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I mean, all I can do is apologize. If I did something wrong, I'm not going to apologize just because you think I did something wrong. Oh, well, didn't you do? If I didn't do it, I'm not apologizing. I'm not going to do that just to keep some kind of peace and then I'm going to have some resentment towards you. That ain't happening. So you got to get really clear with you and what your whys are. Because why do you stay? Okay, let's go with that. Like, well, why am I staying? Good question. Why are you? Well, I mean, money, finances. Okay. So, but where can we execute that? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't just make money appear. No, you can't. But what can we do to, sort of accelerate this effort in knowing what other options you can do? The options are there. If you believe me, you research all kinds of negative stuff anyway. You're on Google all day long trying to figure out why your hangnail won't come out. And 5 minutes later, you think you're going to have to amputate your finger. So you have no problems researching that. But then when you look at your why and you can't figure it out, you just give it in. You just give in. If you put half the energy into figuring out your whys that you do into worrying about other people's whys and worrying about these what ifs, if you put that energy into yourself, on yourself, and for yourself, then you start understanding you better. And when you understand you better, you're very comfortable at not understanding everybody else. It's okay. And that's where you check your vibe. What does my vibe feel like? What does their vibe feel like? Remember, it's okay to not just vibe with the people who you vibe with, right? Like, like I said, I talk to people all over the world. There's going to be different cultures involved, all of those things. I love it. Because it's not that I'm not comfortable. I just don't know. And sometimes if people don't know, they're not comfortable. I'm opposite. If I don't know, I want to learn. I'm not going to say, oh my God, I don't understand why they do this. I don't need to understand the why, but I would like to get in to understand a little bit more of the practice so then I can formulate my own why. So that's what I'm saying. So going into this week and every day thereafter, I really want you to sit down with yourself, check in with you. Why is your why? What is your why in everything you do? Why do you feel like you need to get married? Why? Because your mom said you need to? Why? Because that's not a thing. So be clear that these whys are your whys, right? And then get very clear that when somebody else has a why and they finally tell you their why, if they tell you their why and they choose to do that, and then you get pissed off at their why. That's not fair. You asked them why, and then you didn't like their why, and now you're mad about their why. Well, you shouldn't have asked for it then. See, you wanted the answer you wanted to hear, or the apology, or the accountability. Not everybody's going to give you that. And no one is responsible to do that for you. And that's what I really want you to internalize, is that you're here for you. And when you're good, I promise you your family is good. It doesn't matter. Listen, I said your family. And when I said your family, don't think that I automatically mean your extended family. I'm talking about all the people that you care about, not the ones that you're codependent on for their approval, codependent for their approval, right? It's when you're good, you're not taking things personally. When you know your why, you're not taking things personally. You're not overreacting to it. You're not overthinking to it. You're not holding on grudges. You're not comparing yourself. That is understanding your why. That is understanding who you are. That is being okay with not understanding why somebody does something and not losing your damn mind about it. That is not doom scrolling down on social media, going down people's comments to try to figure out why the hell something that the news posted about something, and if you go down that doom scroll world, then you get all pissed off and you don't understand why somebody does this and why. Okay, well, last time I checked, no human being on this planet, myself definitely included, has lived some perfect life, because perfection, it does not exist. Perfection is definitely associated with insecurity, because if you don't do something right, you feel like you're going to be judged. That's insecurity. So keep that in mind. So allowing yourself to sit with you to appreciate your own damn why and what you want to do about it and how are you going to go about doing it. And then that's where you come in with the micro goals, which I have a podcast on. So remember that. So before you go start worrying about why everybody in the family does this and why everybody does this and why everybody does that, you don't need to know their why. Period. Okay? But what you do need is to know your reasons why and dig deeper than what you think it is. And sometimes you're going to say, I don't know why. And that's good. That's good. That means that somebody somewhere along the line has been giving you something that says, well, this is what you do. And then when I say, well, why do you want to do that? Or why do you not want to do that? And you go, I don't even know. Then you know that that's not your stuff. That's a telltale sign. This isn't your passion. This is somebody else's. And it is not your job to make other people comfortable. So with that being said, have an amazing week and double check yourself and get to know you and get to know the deep-rooted part of who and why you are, and let go of understanding anybody else's why.